Hello, this is Adol. Welcome to the video lecture series on the course of Design of Steel Structure. So in this course, we already cover 3 units in the previous videos. So by this video, we are going to start with our unit number 4, that is Design of Compression Member. In this video, we are going to see about introduction of compression member and slenderness ratio, actual length, and the effective length of the compression members. So these 4 topics we are going to see in this video. Let's start our lecture with introduction. So a compression member is a structural member which is subjected to two equal opposite compressive forces applied at its end. So assume this one is as a compression member. So two equal and opposite forces. So if this forces, so this is how the forces will applied at the ends. Two equal and opposite forces applied at the ends. There are many types of compression members. The best known example is column. Column is the best example of the compression member. And some other examples are there, that is top chord of trusses. This is the top chord of the trusses. We call it as a principal rafter, bracing members, boom. Boom is another principal compression member which is used in a crane support. It's used in a crane only. And compression flanges of build-up beams and rolled beams. These are the some of the examples of compression member. Columns are usually thought of as straight vertical members whose lengths are considerably greater than their cross-sectional dimension. So in column, its length is greater than their cross-sectional dimension. So columns and struts are termed as long or short depending upon their prone to buckling. So how it is buckling, how it's a buckling will happen here. According to that, we will call it as a long column or as a short column or long strut or a short strut. So if the strut is short or if a column is short, the applied forces will cause a compressive strain. So forces will cause a compressive strain which result in the shortening of the strut in the direction of the applied forces. So in the force where it is applied, it will shorten its length. So that is called a short column or short strut. So under incremental loading, so if you are increasing the loading, what will happen? This shortening continues until the column squashes. So until it will squashes, the short buckling will occur. So if the column is long or if the strut is long, in the initial stages, similar axial shortening is observed due to of incremental loading. Thereafter, the strut will become unstable. So once it becomes unstable, it develops a deformation in the direction normal to the loading axis. So due to the instability, so a deformation will occur in a direction normal to the loading axis. The strut is in buckled state. The strut in it is in buckled state. So what is meant by buckling? So buckling. So mainly it will occur in the compression subjected to the members that are subjected to the compression forces. So it is a behavior characteristics by deformation developed in a direction normal to that of loading that produces it. So it is a deformation that will occur normal to the uh, normal to the loading axis. So in the diagram, a bending, this type bending is, so if a beam is bent like this, we will call it as a bending. If a beam applied to the load, we will call it as a bending. Same, the load is applied on a column and it will buckle. The column will bulge one end. So that is called buckling. Some of the examples of the compression member. Strut. So strut is a web member of a roof truss or a braced frame is subjected to light axial compressive load. So this is the roof truss. This is a roof truss. So these two parts are called as strut. So web member, and it will carry a light axial compressive load. And this one is a braced frame structure. So here this is a bracing, this one is column, and this dotted lines are called as a strut. Second is principal rafter. So principal rafter is the top chord member of a roof truss or a truss girder. It's under heavy compression load. So strut will have light compressive load, whereas principal rafter will have heavy compressive load. So in the roof truss, this one is the principal rafter. It will carry a maximum compressive load, and this one is the roof truss girder. These points are principal rafter. So this will carry a maximum compressive load on it. Next one is column or post or stanchion. So column is a vertical member of a steel building frame, is used to support floor girder or floor which is subjected to heavy axial compressive loading. So this is a column. So this column is support to the floor girder to take care of the heavy loading apply on the roof girder. It will transmit the load to the foundation. So this is a column. And the final one is boom. So it is a principal compression member of a frame. So this is a crane structure. So boom is this part is called boom. So it will carry a maximum compression load on the crane structure. So this is the boom. So these are the examples of the compression member. Then what are the general failures that will occur in the axially loaded column? So if your column is a short column, it will when it is subjected to the axial compression, it will fail by yielding or crushing. So this is how it's a yielding or crushing it will happen. So if it is your column is a long column, it will fail by elastic buckling. So this is how the long column will fail. Third one is intermediate column. So it will not be short or not a long column. So it will be intermediate between short and long column. So this will fail by inelastic buckling. So this is how the failure will occur, the inelastic buckling, whereas the failure will occur in long column is an elastic buckling. So these are the general failures that will occur in the axially loaded column. Slenderness ratio. Slenderness ratio of a column is defined as the ratio of effective length to corresponding radius of gyration of the section. So this slenderness ratio we already studied in the tension member, same as the compression member, but the K value here differs. This effective length constant will differ in the compression members. So the slenderness ratio formula lambda is equal to LE by R, where LE is the effective length. So effective length is how we can find the effective length is effective length constant into actual length. by multiplying with the effective length constant with the actual length, we will get the effective length. So our lambda will be equal to KL by R. So we know L is the actual length of compression member, R is the radius of gyration. So LE is the effective length and K is the effective length constant. So in the coming part, we will see how we have to find the K value. This K value is usually depends on the rotation, so it depends upon the rotation and relative translation boundary condition at the end. So that is rotation and translational boundary condition at the ends. So due to that, our K value will differs for each end conditions. Next is the actual length. So actual length is the center to center distance of compression member between the restrained ends. So this is the center to center distance of compression member at restrained ends. So this is the diagram which sees we have y-axis and z-axis. So if you take in y-axis, in y-axis, your actual length is, so here from here to here it is 3 meter, and from here to here it is another 3 meter. So your L is 6 meter, 3 plus 3 in y axis. But if you take in z axis, your effective length is here one condition, here one condition. Assume this is also 3 meter, then your actual length is 3 meter. So your actual length will differ with the axis of the member. So how it is connected. Next is the effective length. Effective length KL. So effective length KL is calculated from the actual length of the member, and we are considering the rotational and relative translational boundary condition at the ends. So how the boundary conditions, so where it is a fixed beam or a hinged beam, so it is a free end. So according to that, our boundary conditions, your K value will differ. So the first one is effectively held in position at both ends but not restrained against rotation. So this is our first condition. So as seen in the figure A, you can easily identify it is a hinged joint. So this is a hinged joint. So it will, so the hinged joint will, rotation is free. It can rotate, but it cannot translation. Translation is fixed. So it will held in a position. Translation is fixed. It cannot move, but it can restrain or rotation. It can rotate. So in that condition, your K value is equal to 1. So your effective length is equal to 1 into L. So in this condition, both ends, the column will be held in position but not in rotation. So K is equal to 1 and your effective length is 1 into L. Second is effectively held in position at both ends and restrained against rotation at one end. So the diagram D is, see here, one end is a hinged joint, a pin joint. So in joint, another is a fixed joint. This fixed end condition, what will happen? Both rotation as well as both rotation and translation are restrained. So what will happen? Up to certain distance, there will be no movement or no displacement occur. So buckling will start from here and it will end here. So your K constant for the second condition is 0.8. So your KL is equal to 0.8 into L. So we have to remember these things for your exams. So if one end is at one end, both ends are effectively held in position, and one end is restrained against rotation, then it is an one end it is fixed, another one is an hinge joint. Third condition is effectively held in position and restrained against rotation at both ends. So here it is both ends are fixed joints. So both ends are fixed joints. So your K value is equal to 0.65, then your effective length is equal to 0.65 L. 0.65 L. And the fourth condition is effectively held in position and restrained against rotation at one end. So one end is held in position and restrained against rotation, that is fixed connection. One end it is a fixed end, and the other end restrained against rotation but not held in position. So not held in position, restrained against rotation and not fixed in held in position. This is a roller condition. So this one is a roller. So this one is fixed. Fixed means both rotation and translation is restrained. But in roller condition, what will happen? Restrained against rotation, but it is not restrained against the position. It will move. So here the K value is equal to 1.20. So KL is 1.20 into L. And the fifth condition is effectively held in position and restrained against rotation at one end. So for first part, it is a fixed end. Second is at the other end, partially restrained against rotation and not held in position. So see the diagram E and D. See in the D, it is roller, it is displaced but not rotated. The same roller is slightly rotated and displaced also. So this condition, the K value is equal to 1.5. So your effective length is equal to 1.5 into L. The sixth condition is effectively held in position at one end but not restrained against rotation. So effectively held in position but not restrained against rotation. It is a pinned or hinged joint. Pinned or hinged joint. And the other end restrained against rotation but not held in position. This is a roller joint. So the diagram shows one end is a pinned or hinged joint, another one is a roller joint. So your K value for this one is 2. So your KL is equal to 2 into L. So, seventh condition is effectively held in position and restrained against rotation at one end. So it is a fixed end condition, but other end it won't held in position, it won't restrained in position or restrained against rotation, neither held in position nor restrained against rotation at the other end. This is free end. So one end is fixed, another end is free. So here also your K value is equal to 2. So your effective length is equal to 2L. So this effective length condition for column you have to memorize for your examination, because in the problems they will give the end conditions. So we have to apply the K value from the question itself. So the first it is held in position at both ends. So first condition is the first one is an hinged or pin joint. So for that K is equal to 1. The second condition is one end is fixed, another end is hinged. So for that K value is equal to 0.8. Third condition is both ends are fixed, so K value is 0.65. And fourth one is one end is fixed and another one end is roller, but it is not rotated. So for that condition, your K value is 1.2, and your fifth condition is one end is fixed, another end is roller but partially rotated. So that condition, your K value is 1.5. And the sixth condition is one end is pinned, another end is roller condition, your K value is 2. And last condition is one end is fixed, another end is free. Here also K value is 2. So you have to memorize these values. So next is effective length for angle studs. Till now we saw the columns. Here now it is a angle stud. So the first condition is there are two members. One is discontinuous members and continuous members. So if it is a discontinuous members, under discontinuous member we have four categories. So one is single angle connected with one rivet. So you are connecting an angle, single angle with one rivet only. Then your effective length is K value is equal to 1 and your effective length is 1 into L. For this condition, your allowable axial compression stress is 0.8 sigma AC. So sigma AC is the axial compressive stress. So for this condition, single angle connected with one rivet, your allowable axial compression stress is 0.8 sigma AC. And the second condition is single angle connected with more than one rivet or with weld. For this condition, your effective length constant K is 0.8. So your KL value is 0.8 into L. For this condition, your allowable axial compressive stress is sigma AC. The third condition is double angle placed back to back on opposite side of gusset plate. So if this is your gusset plate, we are connecting angles at opposite direction. Both sides we are connecting. So for that, your KL effective length value will be lies between 0.7L to 0.85L. We have to assume any one value between 0.7 to 0.85L. And here the axial compressive strength is sigma AC only. And if the double angle placed back to back on same side of the gusseted plate. So previous one we saw opposite side, but here it is the same side of the gusseted plate. So for this condition, your effective length is 1 into L, where your allowable axial stress is 0.8 sigma AC. So for this condition, first one both are same. And the second member, for continuous member, if it is a single or double angle, your effective length is equal to 0.7 L to 1 L. 0.7 L to 1 L. And your maximum allowable axial stress is sigma AC. So these are the effective length for the angle stud. So in question they will give it is a discontinuous member or it is a continuous member. So we have to assume the effective length constant from this table and we have to proceed with the problem. So in this video we saw the introduction about the compression members and what are the different examples of compression members we saw, and what are the general failures that will occur in axially loaded column there are three failures. One is yielding or crushing, that will happen in short column. Short column, it will fail by yielding or crushing. Long column, it is elastic buckling, and intermediate column, it will fail by inelastic buckling. Sometimes they will ask this in one word. And after that, we saw the slenderness ratio, that is lambda is equal to LE by R, that is K into L by R. So L is the actual length and K is the effective length. So we saw the effective length for column. So there are 7 conditions in that, and we saw the effective length for strut also. So for discontinuous member or continuous members, we have to assume the particular K value from it. Thank you.